Okay, everybody. Let me get the Michelle Obama off my phone here. Jay, good to see you, buddy.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good.
How's everybody doing? Having a good day?
We were waiting on you.
You having a good weekend so far?
So far, so good.
Margaritas tonight?
Yeah, at your house?
No, you don't have to wait till the day we start out.
All right, folks. Time to kick it off. I want to thank everybody for taking time out of their Saturday Memorial Weekend to come to the meeting. It's much appreciated. We've got Dr. Glenn Cope is going to give us a quick rundown on the OK2A bills at the legislature this year. And then we are pleased and honored to have our state senator, Bill Coleman, Senate District 10, Republican, big R. And he's going to give us kind of a personal rundown on what they went through down there. And I told him when he walked in, did you agree he looks tired? The session just ended yesterday. This is the day after. This is as fresh as the news can get, folks. And then Joe Vaden, who I think most of you know, Joe is our newly elected Kay County GOP chairman. And he's got a little program that they're starting. And so he's going to bring up the tail end of the meeting, tell you about that. So, as always, we're going to start off with our prayer. And since Pastor Jack is here, could I get you to do our prayer for us, Pastor?
Let's all bow our heads. Father, we want to thank you, God, that the heart of the king is in the hands of the Lord, and you can turn it howsoever you will. And Father, Lord, I thank you today that we're able to come here and just to be together. I pray, God, that this will go further and further out through the internet. Lord, that lives and hearts would see truth, and that, God, you would draw us closer to you and to each other. And thank you, Lord, for all you're doing. Put your hands upon this meeting, I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. And Melvin, where are you? Okay, we got a veteran here. You'll lead us in the pledge, please. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. All right. Pastor Jack, you might as well stand back up. Peter, you'll come up. OK2A, I wish it was a bigger check, but we were making a contribution to New Hope Christian Fellowship Building Fund. Those of you that don't know, that building, the white building just behind us, across the alley, there in the middle, and well, maybe not, are you at the middle yet?
Yeah.
Okay, good. They're in the middle of doing a complete refurb on that building, and they're going to be moving the building over there. So if you'll come up, I'd like to present you with the check. Let's, okay, yeah. Yeah, here. Yeah. There you go. A couple of pictures. Yeah, you brought your checkbook, didn't you, Mom? If Melvin wasn't so shy, he'd do a great job. So let's give Pastor Jack and the church. I've said this before, but I can't say it enough. I have been so blessed to have New Hope Christian Fellowship as my venue now. Next month, it will be 3.5 years.
My goodness.
We've been doing this. And I've also mentioned this before, but I've got to bring it up again. Our new chapters, one of the biggest hassles the coordinators, local coordinators have setting up a new chapter is finding a solid, dependable venue. This fell into my lap. The Lord spoke to Stephen Phipps, our AV guy back there, and he's also kind of active, very active in the church. He's in the band and a number of other things. When he heard about me forming the chapter here, he called me and said, I think I've got a venue for you. I mean, the Lord dropped it right in my lap, and I can't thank everyone at the church enough. This has been just an absolute blessing, and we appreciate everything you're doing for Liberty.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you, Pastor Jeff.
I want to thank you all for, and maybe those watching by internet today, I want to thank you all for helping us. You know, when you're starting to refurbish a building that's old, there is a lot to it. Then when you have to battle the kids in the neighborhood that break out windows, there's a lot to it. But thank God, God is good, and thank you guys for all you do.
Great. All right. Now, Glenn, I guess we'll let you come up and give us the news. We didn't have as good a year at the legislature as we've had in the past. Are you listening, Bill? All right.
Yeah, this year, Don had asked me to keep track of the bills that OK2A is following, interested in. So every week I have prepared a report for Don, which is then sent out to all the coordinators. So of course we started off the year over 3,000 bills, I think, which is quite a challenge. I don't know how many you guys usually have, but I think that's probably about that, which is a lot of stuff to go through. Of course, that whittles down rather quickly. OK2A requested, or they were very influential in 42 Senate bills and 19 House bills. So they had a lot of input to start with. And then, of course, there were all the bills that they were watching and tracking and keeping an eye on. Of course, most of those, I think we only have one of our requested bills passed. One of the main bills that we were watching passed. So I gave this report to the GOP Thursday night and took about 45 minutes. So when Terry asked me to present this today, he asked me to give the Cliff Notes version. We want to leave plenty of time for Senator Coleman to speak to us. But just some of the high points, there were a couple of the gender-related bills that we dealt with restrooms, locker rooms, changing rooms in our schools, and to make sure that they were used only by same-sex individuals. So that went through and was signed by the governor. And then, of course, the gender transition procedures for minors really was signed by the governor. One bill that we were very interested in was the change in carry in a boat for self-defense. As the law, and you may carry in a boat, I think it said vessel, but I think it meant boat. Said only an SDA license holder could carry for self-defense purposes. And of course, that didn't include if you were hunting or what, but for self-defense purposes. So this was changed, which will go into effect November 1st, to allow anyone who can lawfully own and carry a firearm to carry in a boat for self-defense. House Bill 1789 was basically a cleanup bill to kind of clean up language and make a few other things clear. Of course, we were watching a lot of the bills that dealt with funding and school, funding in our schools and things like that. One, House Bill 2903 was to create a 3-year program for school resource officers, which I think everybody needs. We need really a lot of help in that area. So that passed and was signed by the governor. We have 3 bills that have been sent to the governor, but he hasn't signed yet. Probably more than that, but at least 3 bills that we were watching. And 2 of them basically dealt with our medical marijuana issues and things like that. So we had a very tight year, I guess, in getting things through. And so we'll have to talk to our senator about getting some more action there for this coming year. Any other questions, Joe?
Were there any of those bills that were OK2A that you could elaborate?
You mean bills that didn't through?
That didn't make it, that are
Like the property protection
That's kind of what I'm.
Yeah, things
and
like,
the suppressor bill.
Yes.
yeah, those didn't make it through. I'm trying to, there's a lot. My most recent list here is really the last couple weeks before the session ended. So many of them had already, you might say, died in committee. But some of the others, Senate Bill 721 clarified some of the language on the SDA. It did remove the distinction of carrying a Derringer revolver or semi-automatic, so it would just be you allowed to carry a handgun. That did pass the Senate, and it went to the House, where the House Public Safety passed it, but it was never brought up on the floor. So never came to general order at that point. Senate Bill 859 modified the penalties for larceny of a firearm. They've actually increased the penalties. Again, that passed the Senate. It passed Judiciary Criminal Committee in the House. Again, it was never brought up on the floor. There was a House bill for carrying a firearm in a boat, which basically didn't pass, but the Senate bill had already passed, so I think that's the reason why that one didn't go any further. But I think that's the ones that had made it the farthest that we were interested in. Of course, we had a whole list of others that died in various stages. Any other questions? Jay?
So the castle doctrine moved it to your property lines got beat.
Right, it didn't make it through.
You know, and the Senate and the House are both Republican, right? Yeah, 80% or so. That's right.
Well,
And the governor.
and the governor. Well, you know, one of the problems that it seemed to me that, it would pass the committee, say in one chamber, and then it would be amended on the floor, and then it would pass, then it would go to the other chamber, and their committee would amend it, and then it would go to the floor, and they would do a floor amendment or a substitution. And it had to go back to that whole process, which, they seem to have a number of issues where they argued over details. And, that's part of the process. We just wish that they could work them out a little better.
Folks, if you want an education on how it works, read the bill as it's first introduced, and then if it passes, read the bill that actually passes.
Well, you can read all these.
Sometimes they have no relationship to each other, but that's the system. The system's designed to make it really hard to pass bills, right, Bill? Yeah.
Well-
And that's actually a good thing, unless it's the bill you want.
Yeah, you can read all the amendments as they're proposed too, and see what changes there. Sometimes they're very, very minor. and then sometimes they're significant. Mel?
Terry, I hate to put you on the spot, but you had dinner with the governor this month.
No, I didn't have, no, I was at a dinner at the governor's mansion.
Well,
There's a
did
difference.
you get to put any input in for the OK2A?
Well, no, actually, my interaction with the governor was, I gave him a hand salute and he waved. That was my interaction with the governor. And that was better interaction than I think anybody else at it was the Helen Cole Republican Women's Club from Cleveland County. It was their scholarship dinner. They gave 11 scholarships to high school seniors this year, and they had 6 of them there, charming young ladies. They all gave a talk, and it was so heartening to hear 18-year-old young ladies talking about liberty. These are people that these scholarships are going to be, each student writes an essay, and it's on some variation of liberty. And it was really encouraging to hear these young people that were plugged in with what's going on in the country.
Yes.
The vote hearing, do you know, does that cover Army Corps of Engineer water too, or the state water?
That's a good question.
That's good. I didn't,
You know,
Maybe.
Bill?
I would think it would be the state of Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Period.
Not Corps.
I don't
We're
rem-
walking on this stuff.
Don't go loading up your boat with guns and go to Ball Lake till you check that out.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Make sure.
double check that.
And then that doesn't
Yes.
come back till November 1.
Right.
Scott?
Emergency.
By the way, Scott is one of our co-coordinators in Enid, Garfield County, and he's come over a couple of times for meetings. Mainly he comes here just to irritate me, and he's good at that.
Well, we all try that.
Yeah, no kidding. You're a U.S. Law Shield member, right?
Yes, sir.
Call them and ask them. They will, Robert Robles will know for sure on that, because that's his specialty.
Or you can pull the bill up,
Yeah.
law now, and read that final
Call
version.
my office and we'll talk to staff.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Hey,
Jay, you have another?
This week, there were 2 gender bills about drag queens. One was drag queens that we wanted to get rid of. And the other was, geez,
The surgeries,
no, it was, I have one very good on drag.
Yeah.
I want to know who that be.
Didn't get hurt.
yeah.
Yeah.
Negative 4. And the one on, I love the phrasing, gender affirming healthcare. That's butchering and mutilating children. OU Med is doing double mastectomies on 8 and 10-year-old girls, and they get tax money. That bill passed, and Edna Drummond, our Attorney General, has issued a non-enforcement directive on that. Now, his excuse is the ACLU has filed a suit. That was no surprise. And he's doing this until the suit is settled. But that bill is passed as law. That is an emergency.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
yeah.
That was an
It had an emergency.
So it actually went into effect the instant the governor signed it, but it's not going to be enforced. So it's on the books, but the Attorney General, who's in
Yeah.
charge of all enforcement, is not going to be enforcing it at this time.
Until the legal matter settled.
Okay.
Mel?
Let's wind up
Oh.
with questions, because it's 12:20, and
We gotta
Bill
have,
is nice enough to come
we gotta
here
have
after
time for this
a
guy.
long work week. And he's going to be answering questions as well.
He's wanting to get to the lake. He's already dressed for it.
Oh, you got
We'll get swim trunks on, Joe.
Yeah.
you have a boat?
I have a boat. I might go put a gun on it
Yeah.
Not till November 1st,
till November 1st.
unless you have an SBA
I'm
license.
out hunting ducks, I swear.
Hunting ducks with your Glock.
All right.
Yeah, I've heard boats described as a hole in the water where all your money goes. Is that true? Yeah. Folks, as I said, we're pleased and blessed and proud to have Bill Coleman, our state senator. He was just reelected. He's just started his second term, right? And he's vice chair of the Public Safety Committee, which is pretty much the Senate committee where all of our gun-related 2A bills go, pretty much, right? And then you're on several other committees as well.
Chair Business Commerce.
Chair of Business and Commerce, that's an important committee. Yeah. Anyway, you're up, boss. Let's give him a hand, folks.
Let me start off by saying this is certainly one of my favorite weekends, and one of the reasons is I like to pause and reflect on the members of my family that gave the ultimate sacrifice. And those three were the Fighting Colemans, my uncles, and Uncle Gerald, who I never knew, gave his ultimate sacrifice in June of '44 over Yap Island in the Pacific. Had two other uncles in that war. One of them came back, was never the same again. And the third one, Uncle Jack, was my hero. He was the Marine that told me all kinds of good stories. So as we move on to Memorial Day weekend, be sure you stop and remember all those people that gave the ultimate sacrifice. We are done with the first session of the 59th legislature, and what a long 19 years it was. It just drug and drug and drug and drug. You heard a lot of your bills didn't get heard. You were not alone. You are not alone. Education took the oxygen out of the room this entire session. It went on and on and on. I'll give you one of the reasons a lot of bills didn't get heard. There's a point where House bills comes over to the Senate committees and Senate bills go over to the House committees. That's the second view. That's normally a 4-week period. Well, because of spring break and because we were mad at each other, we trimmed that down to 2 weeks. So taking 2 committee meetings out to look at those bills, that really, really messed us up right from the get-go. So a lot of things didn't get heard. I don't know, did you have any bills get defeated? Or are they just, that's the good thing is most bills that didn't get voted down, they're going to be available to be heard in February of '24 when we go back in, because that's the second session of the 59th legislature. So you're going to probably see the governor get writer's cramp in February of next year, as a lot of these bills that didn't get heard, especially on the floor, will be able to be heard in February of '24. Some of the things that we got done this year, I tell you one that me personally, I'm very, very proud of, with House Bill 1715. It was basically a made in Oklahoma alcohol omnibus bill. But one of the triggers that it did in there is it helped protect our locally Oklahoma-owned beer distributors from a company known as Anheuser-Busch. They've been in the news here recently with their Bud Light cans. And what this bill did, it pretty much told Anheuser-Busch that they couldn't just come in and yank products out of a beer distributor for no reason whatsoever. And they fought it hard, and they fought it real hard. And it passed the Senate 38-6. And it gave me a pretty good feeling once that thing passed. And there were some other things in there that should be helping a lot of great Oklahoma businesses. As I said, education took up all the oxygen in the room this year. We did get school choice. That was very, very important. We were able to put $150 million into the state for people to use to get tax credits to send your children to private school. It based on a tier on income. When it first came over to us from the House, there was no income cap. So if you were Kevin Stitt, a multimillionaire, you were going to get $7,000 a year to send your kids to private school. In the Senate, we didn't go for that. So we finally worked it out to where it's $7,500 per student in households earning under $75,000, and it goes down to $5,000 for people earning $250,000 or more. So we were proud to get that in. Now, it did have a cost. We did put a lot more money into public education this year. It was a record increase to the public education spending. We put $500 million directly into the formula for base pay raises, and whatever else is left of that, the schools will be able to decide. But we did give some pretty hefty pay raises for the teachers, $3,000 a year for 0 to 4 year experience, and it went up to $6,000 for those employed 15 years or more. So we did get some tax reform done. I know the governor's been saying grocery tax cut, income tax cut, but we don't feel that way in the Senate. We feel reforms are some things to do. So what we did is we completely cut out the franchise tax. And that's going to save Oklahoma businesses $55 million a year. And the one I was really proud of, we eliminated the marriage tax. And that is going to treat married couples fairly. In Oklahoma, our tax code does not treat married couples fairly. You have a penalty. You pay more taxes if you're married. So we did take care of that. The marijuana grows. We did a lot of legislation on the marijuana, especially the grows. Two things that really stick out. We have a moratorium now, no new grows through 2026. So we put the moratorium on, and I believe it went through 2025. We extended that another year through 2026 to give law enforcement more time to get out there and flush out all the bad actors in the marijuana grow industry. We also gave the Attorney General subpoena power for business documents and other things in relation to marijuana grow operations. We made some stronger human trafficking laws. We took some ARPA money and spread it out about. We had a weird time. In case y'all didn't know, the three parties of the three-legged bar stool, the House, the Senate, and the governor, had a little fight going on this year from time to time. And one of those occurred one night on a Wednesday night when the governor overrid 20 bills for the only reason was we weren't for his deal. He just randomly picked 20 bills, and one of those was to help people get access to Narcan, which is something, if you're on fentanyl, it can save your life. I mean, he just randomly picked 20 bills to override to show us that he's big. Well, we went up and we showed him we're bigger. 2 days later, we fired 2 of his cabinet employees, and we told the governor if he continued to override vetoes for no reason whatsoever, we will fire a cabinet member every day. And we got rid of 2, and that did the trick. The vetoes stopped. Now, he did do some more vetoes after that, but he put policy reasons in there, and that's his prerogative. What really got us upset, he clearly said in his veto message, I veto this bill for no other reason other than you're not for my deal on education. And it was very, very plain. And it got ugly then. Huh?
You wrote that out?
Yeah, every veto message. I'm kind of paraphrasing, but the gist of it was you weren't for my deal. So he didn't give any reason why he was vetoing these bills other than you weren't for my deal. Now, since then, he's given policy reasons why he's vetoed some bills. So we spent, what is today, Saturday? I think Thursday we started overriding those vetoes. I mean, there was some important stuff. I know y'all don't always agree with what's on OK2A, but nonetheless, that's the state's only emergency alert network. It's statewide, and it includes the Panhandle. And that was one of what was, I'll take credit for it, I named it, the Tantrum 20 is what we called those vetoes that happened that one night. And we overrode that, and we overrode most all of them that he did that night. But as far as your OK2A bills go, that 2-week process on the committee thing, lots of things got lost in that. And then it created more tension between the 2 chambers, because we were just out of time. But when you don't hear another chamber's bill, it's because they think you don't like them and you're trying to mess them up and all that stuff. So it got really, really ugly. But in the end, we finally got a lot of things done. We got a good budget. It's a bigger budget. It is the largest budget in state history. And the good news is that's because there's a lot of one-time spending, not recurring expenses that come up year after year. We did take some of our state savings and we attracted one company for sure. It's It's a company that's been in Oklahoma for many, many years in the wind industry, and they are going to build a manufacturing plant in Inola that produces solar panels, and it's going to be the largest solar panel manufacturer in the world, and it's going to employ, I think, 1,000 people, 2,000 people, and we still got Panasonic in the works too. So we'll see what happens with that one. But all in all, it was a productive session. It was like just being in mud the whole time, just trying to slosh your way through the slow process of all the arguments that would find their way. We did get education done by getting a mediator. We had a mediator come in, former Chief Justice Stephen Taylor of McAllister. He was in there between talking to the governor, the House, and the Senate. He did a great job. He was very, very welcome to join those negotiations, because what would happen is we'd be talking about education, and then somebody, Speaker of the House, would go, I want this 0.25% tax cut. And he'd go, no, we're talking education. And so he kept them focused on the education, whereas the weeks before that, it was just a cat fight in the room almost all the time. So we were very glad that he came in and got that done. And we did reach an agreement. And we reached that agreement, 2 weeks ago, which was another reason a lot of bills didn't get heard, because we had to start moving fast, because we have to be done by 5 p.m. yesterday, according to our Constitution, and we made it to 3:40. So we had an hour and 20 minutes to spare yesterday and got it done. With that, I'd be more than happy to take any of y'all's questions today and answer them best I can. Yes, sir.
So you remember what the question he had about the lake, the See, that's what I'm talking to you about first. We got these laws out there, even attorneys don't understand. They have different opinions. And common people, if he loaded up the boat on November 1st, went out to Cold Lake, that could be something, a federal lake, you know, and it's weird, but the public they expect us to know the laws when you're attorneys.
What's your question?
Let's make them simple.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing simple about government, unfortunately. I wished I could. I'll give you an example. I ran a beer. Y'all may remember getting buckets of beer at one point when you go to a restaurant or a bar and get 6 cold beers. Well, at some point, Abel said, no, we're interpreting that as an enticement, and you can't do that anymore. So I ran a bill this week that said you can do it. And why I really wanted to run it, because I found out an Able agent was trying to find an establishment because there was three beers at a table and 2 patrons. One had gone to the bathroom. And he was trying to find them because there was more beers than patrons. So that's one of the reasons I tried to straighten that one up.
Too busy?
I did. That was part of the Anheuser-Busch bill.
So we can take a look.
We can get a bucket of beer. I think I had an emergency to it, so it might be coming soon. We got to see if the governor vetoes it, though.
Yeah, there you go.
So on that, if I don't drink, I drink about a 6-pack a year. But if I went to Odie's and I ordered 2 beers because I didn't want to wait, they'd have a fit about that?
I think they get you 2. Now, if you ordered 3 and sat down by yourself, they could question
Maybe I'm
you.
just depressed. But anyways, what I wanted to ask you,
Terry.
and I don't want to put you on the spot or whatever, but have you had a change of heart on school choice?
You know, when I ran in 2018, I said no vouchers, no way. When I ran in 22, I didn't say that. So in my mind, I
I'm
reset.
thinking about the pocket politics I went to that had you and Ken Luttrell and John Pfeiffer, and you guys were there and you were just absolutely adamant.
Yeah, last year we were absolutely against it, but this year they came up with a plan that propped public education up as well. So and we tied them together. You had to vote for both of them or you didn't get anything. So that was part of the reason I had a change of heart. The other reason I had a change of heart, by the way, you'll see on my desk is a sign I made this year. I reserve the right to change my mind. Things do change a lot in that building, but it was good for public education because they got a lot more money, and it's going to happen someday. If we voted it down this year, it would be back again next year. Just that push is so hard to get school choice in, and we thought this was the best way to do it.
You said it gave education more money.
Public, yes.
Okay, but I'm just thinking about the entirety of our state budget, if you take into account K through 12, higher ed, vocational.
53%.
3% of every dollar that we take in goes to education, and it got increased.
And it got increased. Pretty handily, too.
Yeah, it was like a 21% or something like that, wasn't it? Of their existing, so it's like.
There's some one-time money in there, too, so I'm not sure that percentage is correct. Yes, sir.
I just looked at the enrolled version of that boat carry.
Uh-huh.
It's only 1 paragraph long. It doesn't say anything about the water. It just says you may carry for self-defense in a vessel.
Well, then I would say that applies to anywhere in Oklahoma till somebody says otherwise. And they can say otherwise.
So if I get like a little canoe and drag it into like school.
But you can't have 6 beers in it.
And I sit in the canoe inside of the school, I'm in a vessel.
That's why when we enact laws, we usually try to fix them.
I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
Your chairman of the Public Safety Committee, Senator Yak, and I understand why, but OK2A is not his favorite entity in the state. Is there any chance of that being moderated somewhat? Is there anything we could do? Because he's there for 4 years, and campaigning is one thing, but once the election's over, you need to get along with the people that are in the seats of power.
I just suggest to try to get along with him best you can and talk to him, especially Don. Now, I'm his vice chair, but we pretty much agreed that we're going to run our own committees. I've got my committee to run business commerce. He's got his committee to run public safety.
You're there in case he can't make it.
Actually, I'm there for marijuana.
Oh, okay.
Because if there's anything to do with marijuana, it's either going to go through business commerce or public safety. So I'm there to hopefully get the reins in on the groups.
Senator Yak is from Kingfisher County area, and OK2A in the primary in June was very, very active trying to get him replaced in the primary. And it's that old adage, if you're going to kill the king, you better make sure you succeed.
Elections have
So,
consequences.
I mean, it's understandable why we're not on his good people's
Right,
list,
right.
but
And maybe time will take care of that. I don't know,
Yeah,
Terry.
well,
Maybe time will take
yeah.
care of that.
okay. Then, Joe?
Hello, Senator Coleman. I'm Joe McLaren. Is there any, like, laws to protect the First Amendment at your auditors, such as maybe ending qualified immunity?
That, I have no knowledge of that whatsoever. And I'll just be upfront with you. We get so much thrown at us that some things I'm just totally dumb on.
Can I step in here?
Yes.
Qualified immunity, for those of you that don't know, it prevents a law enforcement officer from being personally sued for anything he does while he's on duty. You and I are not going to agree on this, Joe. I came from New Mexico. I lived there for many, many years. I moved back to Oklahoma when I retired. 3-4 years ago, the state of Oklahoma eliminated qualified immunity. What this means, anytime a police officer interacts with a perp, with a citizen, anytime they use their nightstick, anytime they touch somebody, anytime they get verbally aggressive with them, or God forbid, pull their gun or have to shoot somebody, that police officer can be sued personally for his actions, which means he could lose his retirement, his home, everything. So in your instance, I see why you're questioning it, Joe, with what happened. But let me tell you, I would not want to live in a state that did not have qualified immunity for police officers. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you need to say in New Mexico that he did that?
yeah, identify as,
Oklahoma.
oh, God, I'm sorry. I got too much going on. It was in New Mexico that they've done this. And I've got a very close, it's kind of an adopted son or grandson that's with the state police there. And we can imagine how hard that's going to make it to recruit new officers.
Yeah, you don't want,
Could it help recruit officers too, because then an officer won't be like around the breath officers, you can actually arrest them, you know?
Well, like I said, we're not going to agree. We can talk about it till the cows come home, Joe. But I'm definitely in favor of qualified immunity. It may have a few negatives to it, but the positives are immense compared to whatever negatives might be connected with it. Excuse me for jumping in.
you're fine.
Terry, about that, so are you talking about like people that do like First Amendment auditing and stuff like that, like someone that wants to record someplace and?
Well, the qualified immunity applies strictly to whether the police officer can be personally, that's the key, sued for any actions he takes while he's on duty and in uniform. Pastor Jack works with the police here. He's one of their chaplains. Can you imagine what that would do to the morale?
Well, I see enough battles trying to get officers hired.
Yeah.
Oh, it's tough.
I agree with that. I don't want to get into a long debate. I'm just thinking about, like, I get what you're saying, but at the same time, if you have a police officer that knowingly and willingly violates someone's constitutional rights, I would think that it would only be fair to be able to
Well,
hold them.
and we all know that happens in the real world. There's no doubt about it. However, every police department I've ever had any experience with has a system in place to identify those type of officers and a system in place to eliminate them. Now, they may have to step far enough over the line for that to kick in, but it's a balance. It's like everything in government. You got to balance the good with the bad. And we don't want police officers to lose their home because they hit a perp or shot a perp. So, yeah.
You know, Terry, I've been up there almost 30 years. This is starting my 30th year. And I've seen the good and I've seen the bad. And whenever they're going to get rid of an officer,
you may think that officers get by with stuff, but they have a chain of command. They get a verbal warning, they get layoffs, they get all this stuff. But then there comes a point where they're starting to build a case against that officer. And then and I have watched people that are 27 years on the force get the boot.
Yeah.
You know, they come in, they clean house. And I mean, but that's a tough thing. You know, it really is. But I think it's something we're going to have to pull together, you know.
Well, we all know there are bad police officers, like there's bad pastors and bad senators and bad carpet cleaners in my case. But I will tell you one thing that I know with absolute certainty, there's a hell of a lot more bad thugs than there are bad cops. And,
I don't think there's any good thugs.
Yeah, yeah, that's my point. There aren't any good thugs. So, like I said, Joe, I understand your situation, and yeah, it's a valid question, but it's a balance deal, and I certainly don't want police officers to be able to be sued personally. You know, I lived in Albuquerque, folks, between the mid-'70s and 2017 when I left there and moved back to Oklahoma, Oklahoma. I was burglarized 14 times and robbed at gunpoint once, and I lived in a good middle-class area. And in Albuquerque, I had bars on all my windows and doors. You drive down any street in Albuquerque, you'll see 2 or 3 houses on every block. You live behind bars there if you want to stay safe. I have yet to see a house in Kay County with bars. Have you ever seen any?
Just Tony's West Side, Walmart, but there's reasons for that.
Excuse me for jumping in, but qualified immunity rings my bell.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Terry had mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I think, that the marijuana grows have been reduced significantly in the state. What are the numbers and how big a reduction?
We were at our peak at a little over 11,000. I think we just tipped under 6,000.
I heard a few weeks ago, I forget where, but I heard it was under 3,800.
I hope so.
They've been cracking big time.
You kind of seen that here in Monterey with the you know, when that first passed, medical marijuana, we had a flood of real hot shops, and now you're starting to kind of see.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Joe, I was at an event with people that had the second liquor distribution place in the state when Prohibition ended in 1958, and he said in 1958 there were liquor stores on every corner. Yeah. They just popped up everywhere.
I was living here then. I was about 9, 10 years old. It was right before we moved from Oklahoma City, and you know what the saying was back then? The only people that were against legal liquor were the Baptists and the bootleggers. And that was the case, and I think probably in many cases they were one and the same. But we lived in Tonkawa, and when I was a kid, and close to the Kansas border, every time somebody had to go up to Wichita or Winfield or something for family business or whatever, they'd call all their friends and bring back a trunkload of booze for their friends. They weren't bootlegging, they weren't making any money yet, they were just helping friends out. But yeah, that was...
Our city on 6 Point.
I remember getting Coors in Texas and bringing it back when you couldn't get Coors here.
Yeah, Oklahoma kept Prohibition. Everybody else got rid of it in 1933. We kept it until 58 or 50.
So were you the snowman?
No, no, I wasn't.
Marijuana, I think Ken Trill told it was about $55 million surplus that year, the first year, they take it in.
That sounds, no, we're taking in money, especially from the dispensary sales where it's easier to track. Yeah, we're taking in money, but we have a good director of the OMMA, and Adria Berry. She's done a great job. We will keep working on this issue. I'm sure there'll be a big interim study, and along with the House, which means it's going to be, I hate to do the pun, a joint committee on marijuana will be held over the summer sometime or the fall, so we can continue to get this under control and get the bad actors out and help. We got to help protect the good people too. There's some legitimate Oklahoma business people that got into this and had no idea that what they were getting into. What we see now, especially like on the outdoor grows, I think that it goes for like $45 a pound, but if you ship it to New York and sell it there, you can get $600 a pound. So what do you think's probably going on with all the bad actors? They're not selling it in Oklahoma.
Since you brought up OMMA, have there been any updates on Gateway Labs?
I think it's done, Terry.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I think it finally got done.
Okay, boy, I live just like 2 blocks, so I drive by them every day. and they've only had one car in the parking lot. So I'll stop in and ask. I've got permission when they start processing. I can go in and follow something through and see how they work. It's pretty high tech.
Yeah, I have not.
I bid on doing the roof of that place,
Ah,
but we're a little high.
What is his, the one that he's PO'd about and keeps fighting you guys on? What's his school position that he's fighting on?
What's his school position?
Yeah, you said, wasn't it education or whatever, the reason why he dumped 20 bills?
He wanted to get school choice. And the problem that the Senate had, the House wanted to put money for rural schools in a separate fund away from the formula called the Oklahoma Student Fund. We were fine with the money. We were just not fine with the way it was being done. We felt very strongly that if we passed that Oklahoma Student Fund, that we would be sued. Because if you look at the Oklahoma Student Fund, it says that a kid in Tonkawa is worth $700, and in Ponca City, it's $34. So this, we knew we were going to get sued on that deal. Here you got all these rural kids that they're spending $700 per student on, and you've got inner city Oklahoma City where it's $12 per student on. It was not going to fly that way. So we managed to tweak the formula a little, and if you've ever seen the education formula, it will make you sick. It's just like a whole bunch of plus minus marks, and it's something. But we tweaked it to where we think rural schools will be benefiting better. So that's how we got it done. And when I talked to you about the Supreme Court justice on the mediation, once he told the House, in my opinion, the Oklahoma Student Fund is unconstitutional and could be struck down in court. That's what got us over the hump, is when we finally realized the student fund is illegal. We've got to look at a different way of doing this.
And Stitt wanted the student fund?
Stitt didn't care. Stitt didn't care. He wanted school choice. That's all he cared about. He just wanted school choice, and school choice was a part of all this. If we didn't get the student fund, we didn't get school choice. If we didn't get school choice, we didn't get student fund. Yeah, it was.
yeah. Sausage and legislation are the two things you don't want to ever see being
No,
made, right?
you don't. Yeah,
Question?
yeah. Go ahead.
Senator, I believe that our education system is what has brought our country to where we're at today, with all mainly the younger generations not believing that this is a good country. They believe, or a lot of young people choose socialism or even communism. And they don't know who Marx was, but anyway, they choose that over capitalism. And they think this is a racist country, systemically racist has been the term used lately. All those things, I think, came from our education system, both K to 12 and higher.
Especially higher ed.
What can the legislature do about that? I mean, how can you affect that indoctrination that's happening in our school? If we don't do something about it, then we've been doing that for several generations at least, but maybe 100 years, depending on what you want to look at. If we keep the same education system, things are not going to get any better, and they're really looking bad now. So
we tried a merit-based pay bill this year as part of the education package, where teachers would be receiving bonuses based on how well their classrooms did in grades, and put the focus on grades. And I think we'll still get that done. I think that will help. I think we can focus more on education than we can indoctrination, especially if your pay is tied to how well your kids are educated.
Define the word good.
I think everybody would have a different definition of it.
Or maybe more, she's been out about 9, and she said the teacher's lounge was very, very liberal. Of course.
And it's very, it wasn't very positive either, I bet. I bet it was all negative talk. Mm-hmm.
Well, make a statement that I asked a question. The first statement I make is the problem in education today is the teachers unions.
Yeah.
It's not the education system. have you heard of any efforts to decertify the union?
I haven't heard any specific decertification process going on with the unions, but, I know our state school superintendent is not a fan of the unions by any means, and will continue to harp on them. I think we just got to keep trying to get our Oklahoma values put in the classroom better, and just keep focusing on that.
Have you heard of POE? Professional Organization of Educators? Maybe it's PEO.
Yeah,
PEO.
I've heard of something like that.
I heard their head speak at a meeting a couple of months ago. In fact, I've been thinking about getting her up here as a speaker. PEO is an alternate teachers union. And when they started, it's been like 10 or 12 years ago, they had like 1,100 members, and OEA had, I don't know, 5 digits, 80,000 or something. That graph over the last 10 or 11 years has been doing this. And this was a couple of months ago. At that point, they were within, I don't know, 3,000 or 4,000 members as the OEA is. And I can't remember the name. I've got it in my address book. But they offer everything. They offer the insurance. They charge a lot less. And they're Christian, conservative, constitutional oriented. They're a really solid group, and I mean, they've gone from nothing to now they're actually competing with OEA.
They've made inroads.
Yeah. So PEO, and if anybody thinks, I'm just wondering if there would be demand for people that would want to come to a meeting to hear her. But I've got her contact information. I've been thinking about inviting her. But if I do, I'll let you know.
Okay.
Might be somebody you might want to meet.
Sure.
And I know she'd want to meet you.
So teachers have the choice of going OEA or PEO?
As I understand it, yes.
Yes.
Or nothing at all.
Well, on the school choice bill,
This is a right to work state.
yeah. On the school choice bill, something, politics makes strange bedfellows, right? The groups that were most vehemently against it were the homeschoolers, and they've got a valid concern. Government strings means government money, government strings. The thing is, we had to have a change. The educational system's a mess. And this was the only change that was going to happen this year. Now, it may or may not be, I understand their concern about that, but you've got to start somewhere with change. And if this doesn't do it, or if there's something wrong with it, y'all can visit that in future sessions and amend it, tweak it, or bring a new bill in.
And the homeschoolers have the option of participating and getting $1,000 per child per year. They don't have to. And and if they do, they turn in receipts for books and what have you.
The strange bedfellows is they're vehemently against it. Guess who else is against it? OEA, NEA, and all of the teachers unions. Now that's strange bedfellows. Because I've met a lot of these homeschoolers, and a lot of them are vehemently against school choice. But they're diametrically opposite of the teachers union in politics. But again, strange bedfellows. So that's the deal. I'm real proud you all got something through. I know that, I mean, I can't imagine the infighting that's going on with that.
It was mostly in the top 3 leaders of the House and the Senate, pro tem, education chairman, and a probes chair. It was it was my first year to be in leadership in the Senate, and that means that there's 10 of us that talk about things before we bring it to the entire caucus. And we had lots of leadership meetings this session, lots of caucusing, lots of cussing and discussing over education, which I told you took all the oxygen out of the room from the get-go. But it was a good deal for everybody.
I think another statement is, I complain and moan about a lot of the stuff that goes on in Oklahoma politically. But a lot of my friends are in other states, like Minnesota, New York, Colorado, and you hear what's going on in those states, and I quit bitching.
That's why I'm in Oklahoma when I retired. That's why my sister and brother-in-law moved here a few years ago. I've got people from Denver that moved here because of that.
Yeah.
I mean, this is one, if not the freest state union, it's certainly one of the freest. We're blessed to be here, folks.
Carol was offered a job in Minnesota in Engelbart, not Will.
Good. Smart move.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh, one more.
Yeah, on the teacher's pay increase. How do you handle that? Do you have to go through the teachers' union and let them make the final thing, or?
No,
you decide?
it goes to the State Department of Education. We send the money to the State Department of Education, and the bill clearly said if you're a teacher with 0 to 4 years experience in Oklahoma, you get $3,000. Then the next step, I think, was 5 to 9 years. And the State Department of Education is responsible now for getting that money distributed.
and I personally, there's 2 of the new hires there, and he's staffed that with some really sharp people.
Is there any consensus down there about going to year-round school? Making school go, year-round rather than having a.
That's a conversation I haven't heard, so I would take that to mean there's not a consensus. Joe?
Okay. Well, to circle back to OK2A, I know that we all get that your focus is not necessarily on Second Amendment or civil liberties and stuff like that. We had 42 bills, was that what it was, in the Senate that we wanted, and 19 in the House. Can we at least please work on a joint resolution to amend our Constitution so that we are no longer one legislature away from losing all of our governments? Can we please work on that?
Of course you can. The joint resolution would get you out of public safety.
I think it was SJR 2 this year.
Yeah, that would get you out of public safety and into judiciary.
Yeah, we gotta have people on both sides, both chambers advocate for it to get it done.
Sure, you're talking about getting the state question out? Yeah, that would probably go through the judiciary, Joe. So at least
you have to go down there and pester to get it done.
The first one would be Brent Howard, who's the chairman of the judiciary, senator from Altus on the Senate side. I think Chris Kennedy is the chairman on the House side. You got to start with those, and then if you get through those, you may have to go to the next level, which would be your floor leaders, and then your next level, which would be your pro tem in the Senate and your speaker in the House. It's just a constant process.
We were just talking, Senator, about does the unions lobby against with the Senate and the Congress? Do they lobby?
I don't see,
union stuff?
no, well, I don't see OEA people in my office like I do Ponca City teachers or Skiatook teachers. The people I see on education are mostly boots on the ground at schools.
Yes, I got a question about the OK2A. We about the space middle. We don't. It don't pass. I think I said maybe the Second Amendment bills.
So what kind of bills?
Second Amendment bills, maybe. We need a OK2A channel.
Okay. Well, you've got a new state chairman who's pretty clear on what he's going to fight for.
It's a fighter.
Uh-huh.
Well, that pay raise to the teachers, those that's like that got 20 years did they get any consideration?
They got 6,000. I think that was the top. At one point, we had it starting at 4 and stopping at 8, but the House didn't like that because it was our idea.
I doubt that.
And we're just as guilty sometimes too.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, it's a room full of 5-year-olds when you get down that building. Huh? Yeah, that's right. They're making more money. You got to pay more taxes.
It's 1 o'clock, so I think we'll probably wind it up. I'm sure Bill's got plans for the rest of his week.
Joe guessed it.
Let's, speaking of leadership, we now have our local guy in leadership in the Senate, and John Pfeiffer is deputy floor leader over in the House. So K County, more or less, and in your case, K and Osage County, we've got a little more leverage down there than a lot of these towns and districts do because we've got people in leadership. And that is so important. Nothing gets done down there without leadership being on board.
You are correct.
Yeah. So thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
Y'all don't mind, I'm gonna head to the lake.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, Bill. You bet.
Okay, those of you that were here last month, remember I mentioned some about Michelle and the transgender movement. I had a epiphany last week. In fact, any of you want to see it, there's a video of Michelle on Ellen DeGenerate's show dancing. And there's no doubt of what sex she, he, or it was when she was born. I've got on my phone if you want to see it, or just do a search online. My epiphany is I understand now why there's this push to mainstream transgenderism. Michelle wants to be president. And if they can mainstream transgenderism before she runs, if it comes out during the campaign that she was born male, and folks, you watch this video, there's no doubt about it. In fact, she was wearing a very thin pair of pants and was dancing, and you can almost tell whether he, she, or it was circumcised. They want to, if she runs, or when she runs, I don't think it's an if, when she runs for president, if they mainstream transgenderism, then if it comes out that she is transgender, well, it'll be no big deal. You're nodding. Have you thought about that? I think that's the whole point, because all of this stuff started in the Obama administration. Their daughters are not their daughters. I've also got a picture on my phone of the real parents. The oldest one looks just like the male, and the youngest one looks just like the female. The female is a doctor, and it's her signature on both of the daughters' birth certificates. And the male was the 2008 campaign finance manager for Obama's, when he first ran for the White House, when he got elected the first time. Folks, they're undermining everything in this country. So, who'd believe I'd have something I'd want to talk about, huh? Joe? Yep. I'm going to turn it over to you. Again, Joe's our new K County GOP chairman, and we had a meeting Thursday night, and it was very productive, and he's moving and shaking the trees. So tell him about it, Joe.
Well, I'll be quick. This will take me about hopefully just a couple minutes, because most of you guys were already there, so you kind of know what we're talking about. So as most of you know, we have a new state GOP chairman and vice chairman, and part of the plan is that we're going to work, we're kind of stealing some of OK2A's homework, and we want to take what OK2A is doing with grading our elected representatives and kind of take that to another level. And we want to work on holding them accountable to the party platform and a similar kind of grading system and stuff like that. But one of those first steps is, this is not just for the people that are at 23rd and Lincoln. This is for school board, your anything like that, your city council, your county commissioners, so on and so forth. So one of the things that we're trying to do is we're trying to find people like yourselves that like coming to meetings and listen to what people have to say, to be our watchdogs at other events in the county. So if you can attend a school board meeting or a city council meeting or whatever, whether it's here in Ponca, Blackwell, Tonkawa, Bremen, wherever, and then report that information back to us. The next step is we're going to be working on recruiting people to go out and actually get actively involved in the communities. And we're trying to do this across the whole state. The people in Craig County have started this thing called brigades, and it's very similar to that. That's kind of the plan. So if any of you are interested in volunteering some time, and it's not going to take a lot, just go watch a meeting and ask questions like we did, hold the people's feet to the fire. That's what we're looking for. And then you can report that back. Then we can, have someplace centralized to combine that information and spread it out to people in the precincts, try to develop precincts. There are, did you know, Terry, do you know how many precincts there are in Oklahoma?
I know there's 26 in K County.
In Oklahoma.
Yeah.
1984.
Whoa, almost 2,000?
Well, but think about that. There's
Oh,
1984.
yeah, okay.
How fitting is that? There's 1,984 precincts in Oklahoma, and I would say that we probably at a precinct level have less than 10% of them actually have precinct chairs and vice chairs, and mostly Tulsa County, Oklahoma County, some of the bigger ones. You have a few others here and there, like Washington County has quite a few, but we're just trying to get people to be more actively involved, to participate in stuff like that. So if you have any questions, you want to get involved, you want to learn more, come see me. Terry has all my contact info, and you guys, I know every one of you has at least 3 of Terry's cards. So he can get a hold of me, or we have our county GOP meetings the 4th Thursday of every month at the VOTEC. So
Almost always the Thursday night before the Saturday.
yeah.
If you don't have one of my cards, there's some on the table back there. And if you pass it around, make sure to show them the back, because it tells them when to come in K County, come to one of our meetings.
So, yes, sir.
Joe, listening to you, kind of like a recruiter. But, the Veterans Organization, there's over 2,000 members of VFW here in K County. Only about
Do they have meetings?
only about 20 or 30 people showed up for a meeting. And they say 20% of the people does 80%
of the work. Yeah.
It's like that in churches or everywhere. It seems like people do get involved and don't care what goes on. And then they sit around and complain. So I agree with you. We need
Well, hey, and if that's another one of those things about these meetings. If there's an organization that has a recurring meeting and it's something that interests you, guess what? You just volunteered to go to their meeting and report back what you've seen. So I mean, yeah, if library board, we have one of those. Some places have like public boards for their hospital, and they have public board meetings for their hospital. So there's a great resource. Obviously school board, because that's something that's near and dear to all of our hearts. And by the way, Jay, I was going to say a while ago, you were almost there when you said the biggest problem with education is the teachers unions. The biggest problem with education is the fact that government got involved in it. That's the biggest problem with education. But anyways, I digress. So, yeah, I mean, if there's some type of organization, I don't care what it is, but where there's a group of people that get together and they're talking about things that are going on in our communities, and they're the people that are making the decisions of what happens in those communities, we want eyes and ears there. And reporting back to the group of us that are all liberty-minded, so that we know what's going on in our communities and we can do something about it. That's what we're after. So, anyways, any questions outside of that? And if so, if you want to volunteer, get a hold of Terry. So, thank you.
Thank you, Joe. He mentioned the new leadership for the party. Our new chairman is Senator Nathan Dahm, which I'm sure most of you have heard that name. He's been rated the most conservative state senator in Oklahoma's history. And he's our new chair of the party. And the vice chair is Wayne Hill, and some of you old timers. He's been to a couple of meetings here. He was at my very first meeting 3.5 years ago. Wayne is the guy that recruited me into OK2A almost 4 years ago, fall of 19. So I know both of these guys real well, and I'm real excited. They're exactly what the Oklahoma Republican Party needs. But folks, they can only do so much from the top. It takes the people, troops out here in the trenches to get involved. And this program that Joe's talking about, I think it's a great idea. Hold these people accountable. About a year and a half ago, was it, that did the school board? I went to 5 school board meetings in Tonkawa. Took me 2 months to get on the agenda. And when I spoke, I read the paragraph from their own rule book saying that they're required to have a system in place to take questions and comments from patrons. Patrons, when you look it up, means if you give money to something, you're a patron of that group. If it said parents, I couldn't even talk because I don't have any kids in school.
But I read the paragraph from their own rule book, and then I read a longer paragraph, the rules that the Oklahoma State School Board has. They meet the fourth Thursday at 8:30 down in Oklahoma City. The Oklahoma State School Board has it built in. You can go in there and sign in. They allow up to 3 people to sign in. And if you're going to talk about something on the agenda, you get 4 minutes of their time. If they have time and you want to talk to them about something that's not on the agenda, they will give you 3 minutes for that. And I'll bet you'd be hard pressed to find any of these small rural school boards that have anything like that in place. Tonkawa, they're like aristocrats. They just do what they want to do. A year and a half, 2 years ago, I did a talk. My whole Saturday program was on social emotional learning. And I'm one of the more disliked people in Tonkawa because I was quoted on the front page of the Ponca City paper that when I had that meeting that we had social emotional learning at the Tonkawa schools, the superintendent and her at that time principal, who was her husband, talk about conflicts, they just, no, we don't have that. Well, she called a special meeting at the start of the school year 2 years ago to introduce this new program they had in the Tonkawa schools, social emotional learning. This is all part of this radical leftist agenda. And if you do a search for social emotional learning, you're going to get page after page from Google of positive articles. If you want some detailed actual information on it, go to Pioneer Institute and then look up social emotional learning. They have done the critical work on it. So anyway, this stuff is important. School boards, library boards, libraries all over the state are putting pornography in the libraries. I'm sure most, if not all of you, know about pornography in the schools. This all relates back to the school board. The school board, the superintendent in each district is supposed to work for the school board. What in fact happens, and it's not just in Tonkawa, I've talked to people around the state, the school board works for the superintendent. Every time they vote in Tonkawa, they vote however the superintendent wants them to vote. I don't know Ponca. Do you know Ponca? I don't live here.
You're about to have a regime change in Ponca. Shelly Eric is. Ponca City has like this whole game of musical chairs, except that no one ever removes a chair when the music's playing. So Shelly Eric, who is the current superintendent, is now taking over for Rich Camtillon at the chamber. Adam Leeming, who and I've known Adam for 9 years now or so. I worked for him at the University Center. I like him, but at the same time, you might turn the camera off.
We don't turn the camera off.
He's technically a registered Republican, but he also donated money to Jimmy Nelson and stuff like that. And has had this joy bus with other people when Bob Meister was here in town. So, anyways, but he's proposed to step into her position as a superintendent. I like Adam.
Is he going to be marginally better than her? Who knows?
I don't know. I met Shelly's husband. He was one of my orientees at the rifle club a couple months ago, and he and I got along great. But I don't know. But like I said, you kind of have this whole game of musical chairs here in Ponca that people move from board and committee. It's like it's all the same people, and it's one big club, and we in it. As George Carlson.
Speaking of the rifle club, it's the Ponca City Rifle and Pistol Club. Glenn Cope can give you a membership. You got membership forms with you today? Okay. Folks, it's the best deal on a shooting range I've ever seen. It's $80 a year, and you get unlimited 365-day-a-year access between 8 a.m. and sundown. And
sunrise to sundown now.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay. Sunrise to sunset, and it's $80 a year for dues. This same deal in Oklahoma City or Tulsa would probably be $400 or $500 a year. There's a $100 initiation fee, but that's a one-time only charge. The club is financially very healthy, and we just had dozers out there doing dirt work and they put new rocks down. The range is kept up beautifully. So if you like to shoot and you need a place to shoot, see Glen Cope before you leave. Ryan Walters, I want to say one thing about him. I'm assuming most of you, this last week, he had a public statement. He called the teachers' unions, quote, terrorist organizations, close quote. Folks, this guy's got guts. And they've been whacking at him ever since he announced he was going to run. And
They were complaining that because of him, the membership in the union was going down.
good.
That's what I
Yeah, that's a plus. So, those of you that have TVs, you're probably hearing a lot of negative comments about him on television. Folks, if it's on television, it's a lie. Now, that may not be true all the time, but if you approach everything they say that way, you're going to be correct a lot more than you're going to be incorrect. And as I've mentioned incessantly, get rid of your friggin' TV sets. I've been 7 years without a TV. It's the smartest thing I ever did as far as inner peace.
Yeah, Terry,
Yeah.
I think a comment, transgenderism, I'm guessing this group aren't extremely pro-transgender.
Probably a safe bet.
Just as information, it came out yesterday that Target stores.
Yeah.
If you've seen the new bathing suits they have.
Tuck friendly.
Tuck friendly, so men can buy women's bathing suits and have a place to put their equipment. Now, in addition to that, they have created an entire transgender department in their stores with T-shirts that have very pro-transgender.
They were designed by a Satanist.
Yeah, and it came out yesterday that Target has contributed $20.1 million to an organization called GLENS, Glens, who promotes secretive transgender actions in schools to help kids hide their transgender changes from their parents. And the schools are supporting them and not telling parents when they know a kid is going through the transition. So the parents have no idea. The schools say they have no idea how to do it. The money from Target is also buying pornographic, very sexually explicit books, magazines, etc. for the schools that want them. And they're promoting with the hiding gender changes, as I said, from parents. So my plea would be, if you own any Target stock, sell it. If you own any funds, mutual funds or otherwise, investing in Target, sell it. Write to Target, get on Facebook, wherever, and go after Target, because the only way it's going to get changed is when it hits them in the pocketbook. Now, they've lost $9 billion in the first day since all this came out.
The latest number I saw two numbers just yesterday: 16 billion and 18 billion they've lost in their total value of stock.
And but you know, I like everybody else. I like Target. I mean, you
I
go
do.
there and they've got nice stuff. But on the other hand, they've got to understand we're done.
I quit Target before I even moved to Oklahoma. This must be 10 years ago when they started letting males into the female dressing rooms. You too, yeah. So, folks, this is something in the corporate world. It's called the Bud Light effect.
Yeah.
Bud Light is plummeted. They're down 25% or so. And it's had an effect on all of their other brands. I don't drink at all. I'm a non-practicing alcoholic. In fact, September 1st will be 40 years. But I do like the non-alcoholic beers because I like the taste of beer. I'm not going to be buying O'Doul's anymore because it's an Anheuser-Busch product, pure and simple. But we don't have, where's the nearest Target here? Probably Oklahoma City?
Still.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, there's plenty of places to shop. Pass the word, tell everybody in your family and your friends about what Target is doing. The best way to stop this crap at the corporate level is to hurt them financially. Yes, Suzanne?
There is a small lay a price at the farm.
Oh, okay, well, I don't go in the Park City Walmart unless somebody's got a gun on me. It's just- Yes, Alvin.
You know, I raising my granddaughters, I have to sign a permission to go on a filter for my granddaughter. But yet they're not responsible enough to let us know what's going on.
Marilyn, thank you for coming. I'll see you later. Take care. Okay, have fun. Stay safe. Take your gun.
Going to Target?
Went in a long time ago.
Take care. All right, well, it's 1:20, and I think we got a lot done this meeting. Joe, appreciate you
I
coming.
forgot to mention this, I haven't talked to you guys since then. You know that last school board election we had here in Tonka? We had 1,016 people out of like 15,000 show to vote, or something like that. So.
Do we have a conservative on this board?
Well, school boards are supposed to be nonpartisan, and that's fine. But even when it comes to nonpartisan things, I think that the state and the county GOP plans on, we're going to score them against the party platform, whether they have the R behind their name or not, and then let you know what they have.
The grading that they're going to do, OK2A looks at 10 to 15 bills each year, and we balance all of our grading on those few bills. The OK GOP is going to be looking at maybe as many as 400 bills. So they're going to use some of our grading. They're also OK HPR, the Oklahoma.
We're going to need about 20 wins.
Yeah, yeah, and so it's going to be a major deal. But it's, again, hold their feet to the fire, because they get down there and this stuff is so intricate and involved and under the table that most of the time we don't even hear about it. You know, that's just, of course, that's, what is it Jefferson said? Democracy is a poor form of government, but it's so much better than everything else. And actually, we don't have a democracy, we have a republic, representative republic. And there is a huge difference in a democracy. If 50% plus one person votes to take your bicycle, they take your bicycle. They can't do that in a representative republic. So I appreciate everybody coming on the holiday weekend. Everybody have a safe Memorial Day. Drive careful. If you get drunk, don't drive.
Take Terry's card and call him.
Or you drive,